This Toyota Avalon has a very noticeable clunk and rattle that can be felt and heard. You feel it transmit through the steering column on the steering wheel. So the problem is the intermediate shaft. Show you how to replace that. Take off the wheel, and you can see it coming down through the floorboard. I then marked the shaft on the steering rack in relation to the center split of that intermediate shaft, where it clamps around the shaft for indexing purposes when I put the new one on. Take out that bolt, which comes off with the 12mm socket, and then do the same thing on the top end where it hooks into the steering column up under the dash. You'll also need to cut or remove this clamp here on the boot so you can pull the shaft through the floorboard or the firewall. And then I'm using a pry bar to kind of get some leverage here and walk that shaft off the splines up on the steering column. On the bottom end, I stuck a pry bar into the split there and pound on it from the bottom. And now while it's kind of stuck in there, I'm yanking down on it to pull the shaft free from the steering column on the inside. Kind of use it like a slide hammer. And then it comes free and disconnects on the inside. Now I got to get my tool out, so I pound it out. And now the shaft is free. I pull it out. Some noticeable play in it. So a new one's going in. Poke it through the firewall there. Kind of get the boot semi in place, not super important. And then clean up the splines a little bit down on the steering rack. Line up the new shaft with the marks we have there on the splines that I made. And then I fish some wire through the holes on the intermediate shaft and stick a 2x4 through the loop and pound down on it to pull it in place and seat the shaft onto the steering gear. And then I cut the wire, pull it out. Going to put a little bit of blue thread locker, medium strength thread locker on that bolt on the bottom and snug it up. It calls for 26 foot-pounds. Then with the bottom all snugged up, can put the wheel back on, put the lug nuts on hand tight, torque those later. And then we're going to put the other end of the intermediate shaft on. So you want to mark the splines on the steering column with the steering wheel straight ahead. This is so that if you put it together and your wheels are straight but the steering wheel's a little off center, you know where your baseline is to start. So then you can go in, rotate it one click on the shaft, get your steering wheel straight and your wheels lined up. If your steering wheel's off a spline and they're not exactly true to each other, the wheels and the steering wheel, then as you get driving down the road, it'll detect a turn while the wheels are going straight ahead, and you'll get a steering wheel steering angle alignment fault code, and your StabiliTrak and stuff will be deactivated. You can replace the clamp with a zip tie and get that boot holding on there, and then torque up your lug nuts, and that took care of the problem on this Toyota. No more clunk rattle. I appreciate you watching. Hope you found it useful and that you like and subscribe.